Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 7th installment of my prep and road to 2024 USPA Nationals. I'm at the Coliseum Barbell Club for today's chest day, and I was definitely coming into this workout feeling pretty good. I've been very locked in diet-wise, which I'll get into later on in the video, and I definitely made it a point to do a lot more broken sets, which I'll also get into. So without further ado, let's get into the workout. So right now I'm doing some internal and external rotations with a 5-pound plate, which is something I've been doing not just on chest day, but every upper body day, whether it's shoulders or even back. Because I find that without proper shoulder mobility, a lot of my workouts suffer, even if they're not push movements. But now that my shoulders finally recovered from that impingement that I was dealing with a couple months ago, I just need to make it a point to continue working recovery. So before I even got to the bench, I made it a point to do the shoulder big three, which has been huge in terms of improving not just my shoulder mobility, but stability as well. But right now I'm just working the bar, getting the blood flow moving, getting my joints nice and warm, and getting ready to get under some weight. And as you're gonna see in a couple seconds, I'm gonna grab some weight and get underneath 135 to continue to build up that warm up. I also find that depending on the gym, especially with a bench setup like this, which I believe is an Arsenal setup, I'm pretty sure, depending on the layout of the gym, this is gonna feel very different because the floor here is perfectly even. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but I'm able to plant my feet and get really comfortable on this bench. And I've tried out this Arsenal setup at different gyms and it just doesn't hit exactly the same. I know it's a little silly because theoretically you would think that this would be similar in every environment, but that's just not the case here. I don't know what it is exactly. Again, I think it's a floor, but I just get so much better leg drive when I'm using this specific Arsenal setup. As a matter of fact, they have this same setup on the other side of the gym and it doesn't feel exactly the same. So it's one of those weird little powerlifter ticks that I would say I have, which also brings me to the bar I'm using. This is a Rogue Power Bar, which is pretty standard for bench in powerlifting. And this bar also feels really good. And I've gotten so used to using this bar for bench that if I'm in a different gym environment, I can't get the same type of workout, which officially makes me a certified gym snob. Yes, I am officially one of those people. I'm proud to admit it. I'm going to wear it honorably. I am a gym snob. Life fitness equipment, ill. Hammer strength, get that away from me. I can only use Rogue, Arsenal, or any piece of gym equipment that's not commonly found in big commercial gyms. So hoist, I think that's what it's called, those machines that move as you actually go through the movement. Like the machine is moving your entire body during the movement. No, we need to cancel those immediately, recall them, send them back to the factory. I've got a problem with all those. But rants aside, let me talk about this set real quick. I'm doing a slow 7-second, or what's supposed to be a 7-second eccentric on the bench for a smooth 8 reps. And because this Arsenal setup just feels so good during this set, I'm able to move through these relatively comfortably, but that doesn't change the fact that this is 225 and I'm doing slow eccentric, so this is not going to be easy. This set definitely starts to catch up to me a little bit. I remember the first 3 reps, I was kind of feeling good, and then by rep number 5, it's like, oh yeah, this is a slow eccentric. Slow down there, buddy, you're strong, but not that strong. But this was definitely one of those great new program additions by my coach that just kind of humbles me in moments like this, which is exactly what's kept me progressing over the years while working with him. Because no program, no block, no phase is ever going to be easy. And, you know, in the short term, it's definitely difficult, definitely challenging physically and mentally, but in the long term, you really see the results during crunch time. Now, for this next set, I believe I threw 5 pounds on each side, so that brings me up to 245. And I bust the wrist wraps out because that's usually around the point where I need them, and I find them to be the most useful. I do kind of avoid using wrist wraps early on because I do want to build wrist strength. If I were doing these touch and go, just a regular plain set of bench press, I probably would wait until around 275 before I put wrist wraps on, but because of the slow eccentric, that changes things a little bit. Now, as you could see, that last rep was a bit of a struggle. So I had 2 options, stay at the same weight or go up and do a broken set. And I opted for the broken set. So I took off the 5s, added 10s to bring the weight up to 255. And the reason why I could already assume that this is gonna be a broken set is because if that last rep I struggled with a little bit, with the fatigue, if I'm going up in weight, it's not likely that I get the full 8 in one go. But at the same time, stranger things have happened. There have been instances where, I struggle on a lighter set, and as the weight gets heavier, I actually blast through it. Typically, that kind of happens to me when I rush through my warm ups and I start getting warm during my working sets. So that I try to avoid and I try to get as warm as possible beforehand. But, I thought that might happen for this set, and it did not. I start blasting through this set relatively comfortably, a little more comfortable than I anticipated. And as I'm editing this, I'm actually noticing the bar is slanted, which I've always known was a thing due to my left shoulder not being as strong as my right one. It's just from this angle, it exposes it a lot. And I've actually never really seen my bench from that angle. I typically record from the side or from like a diagonal angle kind of, but to see it from this angle, definitely very apparent. But I got through those 7 sets relatively comfortably. But I got through those 7 reps relatively comfortably. The 7th rep, though, I definitely started gassing out just a little bit. And I started to feel the burn. And I knew that going for an 8th rep was going to be a little risky, even on a broken set. Ideally, you can just get underneath that bar right away. But without having somebody to spot me, that was going to risk me getting stuck underneath that bar, which has happened a couple times to me. There are very few embarrassing feelings in the gym that can top having weight on your chest and looking around to see if somebody can come help you pull it off. That's just an L. You just got to go home at that point. Great character builder and motivator, though, I gotta say, because once you experience that, that will drive you to never experience it again. Believe me, your benches will never be better. The embarrassment of watching the whole gym kind of stare at you as you got folded is enough motivation to get through any set in the future. But today, on this particular day, I was not feeling that dangerous, so instead, I just opted to add 2.5 pounds, bringing the weight up to 260. This actually ends up being a very long broken set, so let's go ahead and count the reps. So as you can see, by the 5th rep, I was already hurting, but we had more reps to do. Now, by that 7th rep, I was absolutely gassed, but I was not going to leave this set, this very long broken set, without completing it properly.
Perfect.
Now, I know that that set was just supposed to be a set of 8, but I had to redeem myself for kind of going short on the previous set. So I had to make up that extra rep and then do an extra one for good luck. And now we are on to bent over barbell rows. And as you can see, I'm taking a little bit of a cooling period to do some rotations, get warm, and just kind of feel it out with the bar a little bit because this is a back movement. And I spent the majority of my warming up for chest because today is chest day. So this movement serves more as an accessory. So, I want to make sure that I can get bench done and maximize that. And then now that I'm on to back, completely different movement, completely different muscle group, I need to make sure that I can at least get a little bit warm before I proceed. Otherwise, if this was just another chest movement, I just go straight to, what I can do at an RP 7 to 8 and just kind of like blast through those sets. But again, I got to be mindful of what I'm doing in my programming. But at this point, I'm still warming up, still going through these sets to get the blood flowing, get my body ready for the movement, and to add some more heavy weight. Now, in a few moments, you're going to see me put some BCAAs in my cup just because I found it to be kind of useful during this block in terms of being able to help me sustain energy throughout the entire workout. But back to my gym snobbery that I was talking about in the earlier part of the video. I didn't realize until this year that I was actually a gym snob, to be honest with you, because I've been doing a lot more traveling And I've been realizing how hard it is to find gyms that are tailored towards powerlifters. Hell, not just powerlifters, but gym enthusiasts as a whole, because anybody who's knowledgeable on training and knows proper technique can really make any environment work. But it gets a little annoying and a little aggravating when the environment isn't really conducive to being able to get the best workout you possibly can. And from a powerlifting perspective, it's significantly worse because of how specified everything is in powerlifting. From the bars that we use, to the shoes that we wear, to the benches that we bench in, the combo racks that we squat in, it's so specified to a point where if those are your training conditions over a long period of time, the moment you get out of that zone, your workout is going to suffer a little bit. You know, like, unless you're really in the elite of freak athletes on this planet and powerlifters, you're going to notice a difference from going from deadlifting on a proper deadlift bar to something like a hammer strength bar that is completely different. And I don't mean different in a good way. Not at all. Those bars have slipped out of my hands countless times over the years. Hell, just a few months ago on a chest day, I almost got decapitated by a hammer strength bar benching on a Life Fitness setup, which is ironically the completely wrong name for it. They need to call it the anti-life setup, because you will lose your life if you're not careful with using this bench. Because I was just minding my business when all of a sudden I slid mid-rep and the bar almost fell on my neck. I had to regroup, rack it, and reassess my life for a second. Because that bench just was not designed to be as ergonomic as possible. Obviously, when these manufacturers make these machines, they have to spend money on it, right? It costs money. And Life Fitness is notoriously known for having their machines in these big commercial gyms. Commercial gyms whose primary clientele are not people who are concerned with the ergonomics of a bench or the specificity that a lot of powerlifters and other fitness enthusiasts really care about. Because before I got into a competitive realm in my fitness journey and I was just training just to train, these machines sufficed for me. But it wasn't until I got into powerlifting and really had to pay serious mind to my form and setup and every little element of what makes a lift a good lift that I started to notice, damn, I cannot lift on this equipment, which is a bit dramatic. I could lift on the equipment. I just rather not, because I just know the workout's gonna suffer. But if I have no choice, I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to embrace it, and I want to try to make the most of it, because Russell Orhe, who is a really renowned powerlifter, actually made a comment a couple of years ago on his Instagram about training outside of your comfort zone. He posited that actually using equipment outside of that realm of specificity for a powerlifter actually helps you adapt to any environment in the long term, which does make sense because you can't control what environment you're going to be competing in. Now, obviously, powerlifting federations don't use hammer strength bars. At least I don't know any off the top of my head that would use hammer strength bars. Any that would are diabolical and should never be allowed to sanction meets, but that's just my opinion. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that quote from Russ kind of stuck with me for a long time, even before I started powerlifting, because I thought theoretically it does make a lot of sense, right? If you can improve your strength with suboptimal equipment, theoretically, that should benefit you when you're actually lifting with optimal equipment. Not to mention, some powerlifting meets don't even follow the equipment guidelines that they're supposed to. Let's take USPA, for example. USPA uses a kabuki bar for deadlifting, and at my last powerlifting meet, which was a USPA meet, there was no kabuki bar. That was a stiff bar, and I found that out as soon as I got on the platform. And I had spent the entire prep for that meet deadlifting on a kabuki bar at my gym, thinking that I was doing the best I could to properly prepare, just to find out that the bar wasn't even the bar that they were supposed to be using. But I've been rambling just a little too long and haven't really been paying mind to the workout. But if you couldn't tell, I'm doing some seated military presses, and this is actually a movement that kind of injured my shoulder a few months ago. It didn't happen on this specific setup. This happened at a completely different gym that had a setup that was a lot more convoluted than this. And in trying to maximize the workout, I ended up tweaking my shoulder because, again, it just wasn't a good station that I wasn't really comfortable in. And this one is a lot better, significantly better, better designed. And now that my shoulder's a lot better, this movement is on the program, I see no reason why not to do it. But I can definitely tell you that when I go to the other gym, I just go straight to the Smith machine because at the end of the day, we want to prevent injury. Shoulder injuries are absolutely no joke and nothing to play with. You know, I mentioned earlier in the video that I take a lot of time getting my shoulders warm regardless of the movement. So we want to make sure those shoulders stay nice and healthy. But every time I find myself in the gym that is highly commercial and tends to have equipment that is commercial, I try to make the most of it. Because at the end of the day, the goal should be to maximize the workout, regardless of what equipment you have. You know, not being in the environment that you want to be in is not an excuse to slack off and have this throwaway workout. No, you want to be able to maximize it regardless for that environment. And in terms of my last powerlifting meet, I remember going to the warm up area and telling my coach, dude, that is not a deadlift bar. And he looked at me, shrugged, and said, well, we're going to have to start incorporating stiff bar then. And since making that change and incorporating that into my program, I've noticed my deadlifts get a lot better. But traveling has 100% exposed my gym snobbery. But just at the gym that I'm at now, if you notice something, if you pay attention and look at the background, you see the same color machines, all from Arsenal. Because the owner of this gym understands his demographic, he understands his clientele, and he himself is also a gym snob. This gym is definitely the bougie representation of the powerlifting community, and I mean that in a really good way. Because of all the states that I've traveled to this year, it's been hard to find a powerlifting gym, and the ones that I do have to drive all the way to have not been as solid as this gym. I found a couple other ones that are really good, but this one is just made me realize how spoiled I am. And I can honestly admit that if I wasn't powerlifting, I would not have any trouble getting a good workout in these other environments. I definitely still come here because the gym places huge emphasis on accessory equipment. So, you know, there are bodybuilders that can also find a lot of use from training here. But in my travels, I actually haven't been able to find a powerlifting gym that balances the two so perfectly. They typically do the powerlifting aspect very well because that's obviously the most integral piece to powerlifting. That's all powerlifters want. We're really simple creatures. Give us a combo rack, give us kilo plates, some non-shitty bars, and we'll be good. And most powerlifting gyms do exactly that, but you don't really find the ones that give you that premium, high quality accessory aspect to it as well, which is something that a huge part of the community is catching on to and everyone is really incorporating into their training. So powerlifters, get your protein in, stay hydrated, maximize your recovery, and hit those accessories like your life depends on it. That's all I have for you guys today. I need to go eat because I am starving. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm Koffi. Catch you on the next one.